Hey everybody, this is my 40-gallon waterfall tank, and today I want to talk a little bit about how I propagate some plants really easily. But before I get to that, I want to take a moment to just look at the waterfall here. I was standing here collecting my thoughts for a moment, and I got to realizing that as rough as everything is looking here in the waterfall, some of the plants are starting to fade away after a long winter. I'm getting a little bit of browning on some of my stuff. But as far as the au naturel look, I always imagined that someday this would actually look like rocks in a waterfall out in a stream somewhere. And I'm really beginning to get there. If you look really closely, you can see how the algae is causing the water to literally overhang and overfall. Right there, there's a gap behind the water. And then, of course, we've got all these other little streams and trickles that are running down and dripping off the algae and the duckweed and everything that's growing up there. So by doing nothing at all and just kind of letting this thing go wild, or I should say go natural, not necessarily go wild like go crazy, but just go wild as in go natural, it's really starting to look like an actual waterfall at a river. So as kind of rough as that looks in one way, I'm kind of happy with it in another. And that brings me to my point about how I propagate most of my plants. I do it the very, very, very simple way. I got to thinking about this because I just planted this in this planter here. I used to have a couple of these that were really tall, and they wound up getting so tall and leggy that they broke in half, and I took some of the pieces and I went ahead and propagated them to get roots developed. Once the roots were developed, here they are. So we're going to go have a look at the other one of those and show you where it's sitting. I've got it sitting in a bucket of water. I've talked about this before in some of my other videos. I've just got some buckets of water that sit under a spotlight in the other room. It looks really rough. It's just a permanent fixture that sits there with the light on it 24/7 year round. And that's where I propagate a lot of my plants, believe it or not. So prepare yourself. We're going to go have a look at some very unkempt buckets of plants. All right, so that is the spotlight that I keep these buckets sitting underneath. That is a spotlight, not a floodlight. It's got a very narrow 20-degree angle. It's not Cree or anything like that. It's just a spotlight I bought at Walmart. I have no idea what brand it is, but it's a 5000K. And it sits directly above a little collection of buckets that have varying degrees of plants in them. In fact, I forgot I've got another one of these plants sitting right there in that bucket. That's the same as this. So this is what I rooted both of those in. This is the one that's sitting in here, and you just saw the other one that I planted, and you can see it's just a bucket that's got a little bit of water sitting in the bottom of it. But if you look, we now have roots all over it. So it's that easy. That's no additives. That's no rooting hormones. That's nothing. I made those cuttings. I threw them in a bucket of water with the intention of someday I'll get around to doing something with that. And it has been literally sitting right there ever since. And when I just picked it up to check on it, both of the sections have roots developing. So that one already got planted. This one will be next after I'm done this video. But I also made some cuttings of some temple plant up in my office tank. So let's go have a look at those. All right, everybody. I actually forgot that I have not even turned on the tank yet today. It's still early enough in the day that this tank doesn't get lit until about lunchtime. So I just cut a bunch of branches off of this temple plant. You can see I'm still getting my pretty purple flowers are blooming, so I'm happy about that. But what I did with the cuttings was put them in this. It's an old pretzel jug. It's got water in it. And now it's got the temple plants cuttings sitting in it. And that's it. That's what I'm going to do with it. I'm going to leave it sitting right here on the corner of my desk. And just the amount of light it gets from the room and the bleed over light in the evening that it gets from this tank, which stays lit till about midnight. That's why it doesn't get turned on until about lunchtime. That should be enough to generate some roots there on that temple plant. Now, I'll grant you, not all of those cuttings will develop roots. Some of them will just sort of wilt away and die. But I'll get some cuttings that will develop roots, and then I'll have some more plants, and I'll be able to make cuttings off of those plants. I haven't bought plants for my tanks in years. I bought one temple plant when I first started keeping fish, and that's the same temple plant that I've been continuing to grow ever since. I just keep making cuttings of it. As far as the Java fern and Anubias and stuff like that, I've bought various plants over the years, but I kind of wound up just sticking with the simple stuff, the stuff that's really easy to propagate, the stuff that grows without any real added attention. I don't do any food or ferts or root tabs. I don't do anything. I just let the plants go. If they survive in my water, they do. If they don't, they don't. And over the years, that's why I've sort of ended up with the plants I've ended up with. They're the ones that do well and are very easy to maintain. And I haven't had to buy plants in, again, a very long time. I just keep propagating the ones I've got and spreading them around and so on and so forth. So don't forget, I do sell my plants. So if you're interested in any Java fern or temple plant or water sprite, I've usually got plenty of all that kind of stuff. So check my email down below. You can contact me and we will make arrangements. So thanks for watching this one. Just again, don't be discouraged about, tinkering around with your plants and stuff. If you get the fairly easy, basic stuff, it's not complicated, it's not difficult, and you don't have to be intimidated by it. Just make some cuttings and do some little experimenting, and before you know it, you'll have more plants than you know what to do with. So again, make sure you're subscribed. That way you won't miss anything. Thanks again for watching. Don't forget, this one here is my office tank. I'll see you real soon in the next one.